Hey there, my fellow author. I'm Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, an old soul kind of writer living my dream as a full-time author and authorpreneur. But I didn't start out living a confident, creative lifestyle. I struggled with the fears and the mental and emotional barriers that so often plague writers at all stages of their author career. But the truth is that with the right knowledge, tools, and training, you can overcome those barriers. I'm here to teach you how I've developed a lifestyle that's allowed me to publish 19 books and counting. Each week, as you tune into the Confident Fiction Author podcast, you'll get clarity on the steps you need to take to advance your writing career. Whether it's developing your ideal writing routine, tackling new skills like dictating your fiction, or overcoming the obstacles life throws your way, this podcast will help you live a more confident, creative lifestyle. Let's get started. Hey there, my friend, and welcome to this episode of the Confident Fiction Author podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, and I'm going to be really honest here. We're talking dictation. I've covered it in the past couple of episodes. I've got my highly anticipated, I know I'm highly anticipating it, along with many, many more authors, my October dictation boot camp, and I absolutely love dictation. It's how I write all of my first drafts now. But if you followed along the past couple of episodes, you know that dictation and reaching that point was not a smooth journey. So a final piece to that I want to share with you before we get into the dictation boot camp is that mess. Okay, messy drafts. So like I said, I'm going to be honest, and I talked about the first scene that I ever dictated, and I got nearly 1,500 words. I did it with earbuds plugged into my iPhone while I was doing the dishes. So this was by no means a dedicated writing session where I was sitting down and focused on getting my words out cleanly on the page and really focusing on my craft. Like, none of that. This was just pure inspiration pouring out, and I was doing it as fast as I could because I only had about 20 minutes and I needed to get out the door for an appointment. And like I said, I was doing dishes at the same time, so lots going on, but I wanted to capture that scene so bad. So I did, and went out, came back, had my app transcribe it, put it up on Scrivener, and started, quote, editing it. That's how I viewed it then. I was like, I'm editing it, and all I can say is it looked like it had been chewed up and spit out by autocorrect. Like, the sentences were a jumbled up mess. There was missing punctuation and just random or incorrect words that had appeared out of nowhere. And I was like, ooh, this is a challenge here. This is pretty messy. Like, I'm like, well, maybe my brain doesn't work this way. Maybe I can't really form my sentences well enough to be able to dictate them. And what was more, I spent about 30 minutes like editing that scene, and it ended up being about 1,200, I think it was 1,275 words at the end. I did go back and find that scene, and I was like, ooh, okay, so maybe almost 1,500 words. And it took me, about 20 minutes to dictate, 30 minutes to clean up. I was like, man, that's about my typing speed. I could type 1,500 words an hour of fiction if I was, flowing pretty good with my story. And so I just came to the thought that this didn't save me any time. So is dictation worth it if it's going to come out this hot mess? But there's a couple of things I realized, and I'm going to cover those here in the episode. But I just want to say that messy drafts aren't a failure, and messy dictated drafts aren't a failure. They are a sign of progress. And today I just want to show you why messy drafts are actually the key to momentum, and momentum is really the only way to finish your novel. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the mess of dictation and how dictation does build and help keep your momentum going with your fiction. And also, I'm going to talk a little bit about how my dictated drafts are actually not so messy now. Let's get into it. So, yes, that first scene looked like it had been through a blender. It had broken sentences, missing punctuation. I was like, this dictation thing, I was really excited. I finally dictated my first scene of fiction. I had some tech figured out. Like, I was ready to roll. And I was just like, this isn't going to be worth it. This isn't going to be worth it if I have to spend all of this time cleaning up my dictated text. But here's the thing. I kept going and giving myself permission to be messy and to not only be messy in my dictation, but to continue letting the learning process be messy with dictation. And that's something that one of my authors, Casey, shared with me. She was in my boot camp and she shared that it just felt like the permission she needed to be messy. I work with a lot of perfectionist authors, like wanting that sentence to be perfect when it goes down on the page. And so that's where Casey, even as a beginning author, like she wanted to approach things and it to be perfect. And she didn't want to get in there and make a mess. Like, tell me what to do so that when I start doing it, I can do it perfectly. And what she discovered, what I discovered, and what so many authors in my dictation boot camps discover is that messy equals breakthrough. When you give yourself permission to be messy and to even let that learning process be messy, that's when you're going to have those breakthroughs, especially with a skill like dictating your fiction. And that's what I do for authors. And that's what I hope I can do for you, is just to allow you to give yourself permission to let the learning process of dictation be messy. Now, in talking about messy first drafts in general, dictation really does allow you to get that momentum going for your story because it silences your inner editor. When you're speaking your words, one, you can't really hear that inner editor. It's very helpful in that. And two, there's just something about having your dictation function activated that you don't want to stop and clean anything up, do a bunch of rewriting. It really just lets you write forward. And that's what one of the things I love so much about dictation is it really allows me to gain that momentum and get through the parts of the story that maybe I'm not so crazy about, or you think about that muddy middle where we get so bogged down. Dictation silences the inner editor and really lets you get momentum so you can get through those parts of your story and ultimately get to the end. And that's a big key, and I'm just such an advocate of messy first drafts. Like, let it be messy. I know it's hard going back and doing the cleanup and the edits sometimes, but what I have found is once I have that momentum and I've gotten that draft down, I'm ready to fly through those edits. Because the thing is, messy drafts can be cleaned up, but you can't edit something you haven't written yet. And I've seen so many authors get stuck in that place of not finishing their first draft because they feared making a mess with them. So, like I said, I want to just share as many details of my journey in mastering dictation so that it helps you do the same. And going back to that mess of that first scene that I wrote, and I did the cleanup, and it wasn't a lot of fun. I was like, this is not going to be worth it. But I didn't let that stop me. I kept going forward, and I ended up dictating that entire novel. It was over 90,000 words. And what I learned was that I was getting better with my dictation. So I was not having so many incomplete sentences and missing punctuation. And my enunciation was getting better. All the things that I teach in my trainings for you to have, quote, cleaner first drafts. And so now with practice and with how much I have developed my skill of dictating my fiction, like I said, it took me about the same amount of time to clean up that first scene as it took me to dictate it. So it was about 50-50, 20, 30 minutes to dictate the scene, about 30 minutes to clean it up. Nowadays, I'm at about 90-10. So if I spend 50, 55 minutes dictating my fiction, it only takes me 5 or 10 minutes to do the cleanup. And that's what I want to emphasize here. I talk a lot about cleanup in my training because it's so important. But the main idea is that I'm not editing my words. I'm just doing a speed read and I'm doing my cleanup. So it doesn't take me much time. So if the idea of a dictated draft just being so messy that it's overwhelming to go back into it, I just want to encourage you, and that's something that has kept you from dictating your fiction or the idea of training yourself to dictate fiction. I just want you to know it does get better with time and practice. So give yourself permission to be messy. If you have been looking for that, if you're like, somebody just tell my brain that it's okay to make a mess, this is me, Sarah, telling your brain, yes, it is okay to be messy. Messy leads to momentum. Momentum leads to finished drafts, and dictation can help you move past that perfectionism even faster than typing. It really forces you to let go of that, embrace the messy first draft, and embrace the mess of learning a new skill so that ultimately you can build that momentum to finish your novels. If messy drafts have been the thing holding you back from dictating your fiction, then my Dictation Bootcamp was made for you. In this bootcamp, you will learn how to take your first steps in dictating your fiction, make the mess, but then how to build confidence with every word you speak. We start on October the 14th. It'll be a total of 4 live days. Plus, we'll have a Facebook community, a private group. If you're on Facebook, you can join there, share your experiences. I'll give you assignments each day so that it gets you into making those messes and moving so that you can start training yourself to dictate your fiction. And you'll get to join authors like Casey was, who finally felt permission to embrace messy learning so that you don't have to fear messy drafts anymore. You're not facing that alone and wondering how you are going to get past that to actually dictate your fiction. So you don't need to be afraid of that. You just need the right community and guidance to get you through it. I hope you'll join me inside the October Dictation Bootcamp. It's just $37, and yes, enrollment is now open. Go to fictioncourses.com/dictation bootcamp to get enrolled for just $37 to come in and join this community for this live time period so that together we can get your stories moving. That's all for this episode, my friend. I do hope to see you inside the Dictation Bootcamp. I'm so excited. It's always a fantastic event, and I know what it can do for you in being able to take those first messy steps in dictating your fiction. Let's do it together. Until the next episode, do keep writing and take care.